Can you listen to me, okay? Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Yeah, I'm coming from faraway Mexico, so it took me some hours to arrive here, but I'm very happy to be here, and I appreciate the invitation to be here another time in Romania. I find it a fantastic place. It really touches very special spaces in memory, in history, and everything. So I'm very glad to be here. I know that you have been speaking to me about the city and the way the city wants to maybe recover, reborn, or redo, or something like that. So I wanted to make this presentation. It's not a lecture, it's not a conference, it's more an exercise. So I would like to share it with you as something that we are working together. Because this is something that is always moving, and it's not something that's steady. So it's always in transformation. So that's why I call it a light and legacy, because we have to recover the sense of legacy to the continuity of the city. So I'd rather read some of my notes, because some of them, they don't belong to the memory, of course. But I would like to tell you that my approach will be really more, will be a technical approach, it will be more a social approach. So I will tell you that it is essential for everybody and everyone on the planet now to understand what lies ahead of us, especially at times of major disruptions like those we have experienced recently. In our natural world, we have beautiful days, splendorous sunrises and sunsets, gorgeous seasons and colors, but also our natural world has given us tsunamis, tornadoes, earthquakes, fires, floods, and epidemics. Our handmade world, between festivities and expectations, social disturbs, riot, violence, wars, economic hunger crisis, and more. This presentation comes from the perspective of ethics and aesthetics, logic and instinct, reason and responsibility, and an attempt for social living in the urban nightscape. It is not focused in a personal way of thinking, but it's focused more or less in what is happening to all of us. No, in the human factor, in the direction united by the body, the mind, and the emotion. So what is really a city? Is a city a relation between the ecosystem and culture? A reality or falseness for better living? A relation of consuming, throwing technology and services? The most majestic invention of mankind? Is that a city, or the city is the ordinary living machine for survival? Related to lighting and its consequences, lighting is a sincere movement toward the interest of studying and anticipating what will possibly come, where it will be in the next quarter or 3 decades. Continuity and consistency fit in the principles of responsible and reasonable. A meta-analytical ontology of crucial, basic knowledge is most needed among all specialties in a transdisciplinary approach between art and science, social existence. Lighting is a vehicle of social integration and helps make city regeneration programs much more attractive. However, the ambition to reach out and anticipate the future will always be present as a challenge. And yet the challenge within the challenge is how to embark in such an adventure. First of all, in order to investigate the future, we have to start from where we are today to enable us to extrapolate continuities and anticipate any disruption. It is extraordinary how resilient cities are today. We live in cities and we believe them because they create certain optimism. Global cities existed 3,000 years ago. Alexandria was populated by Greeks, Africans, Romans, Egyptians, Christians, pagans, Cherokees, Mayas, Incas. Now, Paris, Tokyo, London, New York, they are just in the same way. Cities are man's most complex, complicated artifact, and they're a system for survival of a civilization. They make history legible. They are the drivers of our private and social being. However, there is more for the picture. New cities in emerging economies like China, India, Mexico, Brazil are being built from scratch at an unprecedented rate. And over the last few years, they have been the subject of unthinkable change of economic changes and improvised planning transformations. Where do we place light city planning to identify what direction human futures will take? In the social, cultural, macro context, will future cities sprawl or generate, boom or shrink, live or die? It is impossible to understand the future of a metropolis or town without understanding the future of their citizens. For this, a process method of socio-dynamic forces, they work as drivers to anticipate, study, and represent social change. They are conceptual models of evolution and change that unfold over years and decades where we can put them, accumulate and cross-reference hard data, quantitative indicators, science, technology, and cultural narratives. Future is not a unidirectional or static dimension. It involves a calibration and validation process for human evolution and social level in the context of science, technology, spiritual and emotional values, in the relation of the one with the other. So light as fire unifies us. Herbert George Wells, great researcher of the contemporary meaning of time, mentions that we as human beings, we can decide where we are, but we cannot decide when we are. In other words, we can be in one place or the other, but we cannot be yesterday or tomorrow, and not even somehow in real time present. Magically, this is related to the dream machine of Julio Verne. In this perspective, in the city, this has completed me that light in the city is a digestive visual energy process of time in the human body, mind, and soul of the citizens. Cities live in accordance to the solar system, in daily cycle of day, and as a universal measure of 24 hours. Lighting in the city is touching knowledge and being sensible to frequency, quantity, and selection of an argument for a public space manifesto. Light in the city touches sound, smell, water, skin, eyes, mouth, as blood that runs in the red cells that make up its own composition. In resume, being city is being a photosynthetic organism where humans, animals, vegetation, and things capture the luminous energy and transform it in molecular reaction centers of life and death of its own biomass. No matter if a city is poor or rich, young or old, wise or not, a city might be only two persons. That would be the first unit of the city. That's a relation between two. Based in the quantic power of the sun or in the modest, micro, fragmented, and humble pretensions electric light, they both manifest the organic photosynthetic cycles of the city as a living organism. And it is a reasonable and responsible position to study the night lightscape of the city as a consequence of its lighting master plan. We cannot analyze lighting answers of the city before the diagnosis of the weakness and the strength of the human body, the social human body. The same as in medical surgery, the first approach to anesthetic process before intervention. And for this, we can find the idea of utopia. Like utopia will be the first energy that has built any city. Any city has always been built by a dream, by an expectation, but something that could be possible. So utopia makes radical thinkers of the concept always related to the city as Campanella, Platon, Herbert Marcuse, Lewis Mumford, Le Corbusier. Always they thought about the ideal city. As architects and designers, their memory and their expectation was always to build something that could be like impossible to be built. So the city is like a big tree. It's the principle of hope. The city is the utopia. It's an elsewhere. Few laws, good for all. The city becomes the ultimate message. Instead of becoming opposite, it is to become. Fantastic drawings of Jacek Jerka, Nicolas Bedoux, Escher, Peter Browell, they all paint the city utopia as Platon or Aristotle did. So the city is always this kind of dream that can also be built. And it speaks about the community and the collective expectation and the collective imagination. So that's how we live in the city. And that's a dream, a beautiful built dream. And well, Platon said that utopia was something that could not that could not happen. Well, sorry, Plato did the opposite. He said that utopia was something that could be built. And Aristotle said utopia is something that cannot be built. So we state in the Platon idea that utopia is something that we can build. So utopia is not a dream that cannot be done. But instead of this, in the metropolis, in the city that we live, like this city now, we have the other position, the dystopia, the dystopia. Dystopia is an imaginary place where conditions have turned bad. Deprivation, oppression, danger and terror, a space where social and technological trends have culminated in a great, diminished quality of values. It's a fiction, is near the death of the dream. So that's the consequence of a city that could also be a dystopia. So how to take care of this organism? So for this, I have figured out that there are, as a capital, as a city, there are 7 capital sins and 7 capital virtues. If I would like to point out this, one of these 7 capital sins could be overpopulation. But overpopulation comes from fertility and hope. So it's like a contrast there. The richness of an unmeasurable passionate fertility of the human being makes possible overpopulation. But it also has a negative impact, attending the general approach, based in migration and immigration. The growing desire of humanity to increase in instinctive relationships. Urban developments, towns and cities have not increased positive emotional feelings, but have grown aggressive attitudes instead. But they are always instead in search for survival. Many reasons come down and work, but this thing is based more in 2 values mainly, work and power. A second capital sin, devastation and war. Between predators and victims, vegetative, animal, and human species, they all instinctive relationships especially increases, producing catastrophe and natural kingdoms. In our case, cities are now produced because of chemical and pharmaceutical products, despite their own companions. And here is where the ruins of ethics and aesthetics start. Distanced from nature, where the only possibility in town planning, especially speaking of light, is toward health, morality, and the spirituality of the people and the city. A third capital sin, self-competition, function as a cycle process where an increase in result produces an increase in more results, and so on and so forth. It works over women and men, reducing the survival of the species. A major self-competition becomes a minor species. The power of money and recognition for a monetary value of time and hurry. Fear as a free-falling route for ambition to money and power to achieve personality. Fear of poverty, carelessness, image increased by illness, losing the potential of reflection between hurry and money, impossibility to be alone with ourselves. Another capital sin, death of feelings in the city, between what I like and what I do not like, what pleases me and what doesn't please me. I use the city as a handkerchief. I have the gas, the electricity, I have the streets, I have the whatever services. So I just use the city. So this is a possible process of death of feelings. Looking to feel good in a fast-track happiness, avoiding the city itself. A continued distraction when fighting against suffering and emotions, believing that love is the same as pleasure, considering that being effective and the ups and downs that come with our weakness and nonsense. Destruction of the whole tradition. Another point of the capital sin is genetic decadence. The negative influence of stress and the continuous strive for quality of life that generates noise, pollution, water insecurity, rush. Advertisement developments of urban life, bad habits in eating, digestion, air, emotions in the urban space. A decadence that produces genetic distortion, smoking, alcoholism, drug use, sedatives, depressants, emotional stimulants that generate new genomes of instant evolution with no genetic code. New forms of language that are sustained and pushed by a marketing image, by consumption, pleasure, and fomented by the psychological, psychiatric new ideas of organic food, green industry, energy savings, codes, standards, LEDs, and leads. Another point would be the broken identity in the generation of polluting and contamination. But we think that polluting and contamination is only physical, but it's not only physical, it's existential. The contamination might be in another way of presence. So these things happen, and I want to tell you, I'm not angry, I'm not negative. I'm just trying to say something that I know it happens in my city and in other places as well. Another capital sin that we all know very well will be violence and war, no? Based in the presence of a rich city that affects a poor city, one in front of the other. A genetic inhibitor of life in the relation of the neighbor, in the neighbor of the street, in the neighbor of my neighbor. The border city that's not so far away, it's just in front of my house. A contributing relationship of destruction. This possibility can have a very personal attitude in everyday life. The human condition of being superior over the other condition of the human. And the state of sin, lighting becomes then, lighting and its consequence becomes, it could become the more active element in society that could be used in all ways and in any way as the more powerful energy to take care of these 7 capital sins. But we can also see the virtues. The virtues could be legislation, possible urban order, the way a city could be organized, could be structured as a future value. Of course, speaking about lighting and light, we could take care about the ambience, even color, temperature, intensity, contrast, speed, all this value that gives the people the sense of being in the urban space. Finally, the city is not, who is the owner of the city, I will say? Who owns the city? The citizen could be the owner of the city. So lighting could be, in this case, a very powerful tool to recover the public space. And so distinguish the several relations between one space and the other and make the connections, initially the visual connections, and as a consequence, the social connections for survival and community. Also, another virtue in the town planning of a city lighting master plan would be taking care of the relation with nature and not nature, naturally nature. So how to relate the city with the natural environment and with the natural atmospheres. So this would be another virtue that we should follow and try to take care of. So we can make some lighting poles that could maybe be disguised as trees, or integrate the lighting in the atmosphere of the city, or make these light poles grow as the trees they do. So this is part of utopia. But another virtue of the city will be the community that's based in communication, continuity, and connection. For this, it's very important the social value between one space and the other. How can the city be the first element that communicates us? We can be at home, we can be at our house, that's our inside private space, but we are most time out. And the city is always giving us all kinds of services and support. So community will be the first, one of the most important virtues of the city. As well, belonging, identity, share and bond. So in this, all these places by night could be a center of communication and community. As well, the beauty that shares all us together. And so, self-doing. Self-doing is very important. What do I do for the city in my own house, in my own sidewalk, or whatever? Self-doing is the contribution of the citizen for the welfare of the city. Sometimes we're just expecting to be receiving services from the government or the authorities. But a good question would be, what do I do for the city? The city is doing everything for me. It's keeping me alive, it's giving me work, family, friends, food, everything. So the city is always so generous. And the question is for us, maybe as architects or urban designers, whatever, what do we do as a community or a personnel for the city? So self-doing will be a very important thing to do. So we can carry our own light in our self-doing for the city. We can carry our own lantern, maybe, and we can take care of the city the way it is. Sustainability would be another thing. Culture, own recognition, liquid values of the communication. Orientation would be another virtue. Where I am now, where I am going, what's the trend, how is the street taking me, where to go. Always the city is helping me not to fall down. I can walk, I can maybe run, I maybe know where I am going. So the city is always alive, giving us all services and very good approach to continuity. So in this way, lighting is so good and so perfect. Orientation, types of city. And I would like to refer the city not as a material thing or a material body of buildings and streets and parks and plazas. That would be the material body of the city. But the city also has not a material body, it has an organic body. And like all the cities, they have their own belonging, their own feeling. Like Tokyo. Tokyo, besides a beautiful city in a way, no, in its inhabitants, in the living sense of the city, is a place where to watch. Tokyo is a place of dynamics, where history and high speed are stable concepts. Notion of precision. A shrinking city, where there are more diapers for old people than for babies. It's a city based mainly in silence. Although it's noisy in other sections, you can feel that Tokyo is a silent city. But Moscow, not as a building element, is a statement of a state city, where crime and underground power are relative concepts. So that's mainly the idea of Moscow. It's an underground city. Something has happened that we don't know. So that's more or less around the feeling of the city. And Jerusalem, a historical city where ancient past and future is still to come, and still future is unknown. So Jerusalem is a city based on hope, something that will come, that has not yet arrived. So that's the substance of the non-material element of the city. As well, we can find in Bilbao an iconic city with only one iconic element, the museum, no? That's reborn, a city that was reborn by architecture in the building of the museum. In this case, the reborn works like a forceps to make things be born in the image of the city. And Bilbao has recovered a strong image, and now is a main capital of tourism and visitors. And we can speak about New York, the global city. A city that's not only because of its high-rise and big buildings, it's the globe city. Finances, art, communications, radio, advertisement, sex, fashion, publishing, business, and despair. What about identity as a liquid city? And New York is so dynamic and so fast that you have to stop in every moment. So the non-material element of the city of New York is based most in this liquid condition. But we have also Shanghai, a show city, a perverse notion of pride. Everything has to be more than the other. Everything is fighting in light in Shanghai. It's hard to find which is more powerful. One signal of light is bigger than the other. So pride and perverse idea, but it's also based in very strong social condition. London, well, London is where everything can happen. No? Everything can happen in London. This is one of the most cosmopolitan cities in the world. It's a polis city, multi-diverse, creative between the past and what could ever be said the future. A fantastic element of improvisation and creative possibilities. So that's what I could say about London. And if I can speak about my city, Mexico, well, Mexico, we still don't know. It was founded 600 years ago, but we're still trying to know what's Mexico. We still don't know. But it's a very powerful and weak city. It's based in two energies, fertility and destruction. Both, they play at the same time. And we have such a big imagination in the city. It's so intense and so vital, but so fragile, that it's always in this polarized condition. And that's the energy of the city. Not only the buildings or the houses, but the people itself. Mm-hmm. So, we have these conditions, but also we have a very good example in South America, in Colombia, with Medellin. Medellin has become one of the best examples, right, we could manage to say, of recovering, of transformation, of culture against violence. And Medellin is one of the cities that has recovered by urbanism, social and public space, the new possibility to reborn as a new society. I've been in this place, I've been in this city 3 times, more or less. And it's impressive how culture, libraries, public space, nice lighting has transformed the society in such a direct and silenced way. So Medellin is a very good example of urban recovery, especially by light, and obviously urbanism elements. And we have Buenos Aires. Well, Buenos Aires is a very beautiful city. I just been there 3 or 4 months ago. It has a new lighting program, yeah? But still missing one value. They have lit the streets, but they have forgotten the sidewalks and the houses. So you have a lot of light in the streets and a lot of darkness in the houses. But still, Buenos Aires, Argentina, has taken the risk to recover the public space by light. Eindhoven, in Holland, great city, based in the technology. So it's recovering a big position in Europe as a city light. And here we have Timisoara. No? What I can find about Timisoara, I can feel a very high hope for transformation. I can see a city that's shaped like an old-fashioned city full of past and full of memories, but there's a big hope for transformation. And a beautiful conceptual idea of the people. I can feel that there's a very special feeling of neighborhood, especially maybe by young generations like you. So Timisoara, and it will be the capital cultural city of Europe in 2021. So congratulations for that. That means this city is based in hope and in the things that might be happening. So we can see that all cities are resilient. They all have resistance. They can defend themselves. So they can defend from anything that surrounds them. So, but to establish a lighting master plan, we need to have some process, a transdisciplinary process of different specialities. Let's say we need to find the communication links, community links. We have to analyze with other specialists the reconstruct and the reconstruct of the city. The non-linear process, hand links, symbols and images, non-verbal communication, learning maps, and story sharing. All these might make a composition for a real lighting master plan. So lighting is not only related to lamps or electricity. It's not related to energy savings or codes or standards or all that technology. That's okay. We're not against that. But a lighting master plan is for society, it's for the people. It's not for the material world. So we can find different approaches how to touch the city, how to reinvent it in the nightscape. And so we can find also, as the 7 scenes and the 7 virtues, 7 possible steps to be reasonable and responsible for a lighting master plan. And this would be, start with the city. Think about the place making, how every place has its own structure, own atmosphere, own value. And then cooperate artful doing, how to recreate it, how to redo it in a way. Strategic planning could be more technical, could be more economical, of course. Full of imagination, of course, intuition, memory, and writing. Writing the story, the whatever, of the inhabitants. So that cycle could make a good approach to a lighting master plan. And based in the analysis and visual diagnose, what is now, what we can see, establishing a concept, having a selection and a hierarchy of the elements and the spaces, visiting technology and implementation, having the realization and the evaluation of benefits. In this process, all the community could be together. Of course, maintenance, very important. So, to be responsible, we have to have a strategy. And to be reasonable, we need to have intuition. So we relate responsible and reasonable with strategy and intuition. They will have a good trend for a lighting master plan. So in the strategy, we need to find the way for economy, time frame, technology, and continuity. But in the intuition, we need to find the identity, the flexibility, the sustainability, and the belonging. And if we cross these values and we find them to be complementary in a way, then we can find the way to relate the thinking with the feeling and the doing with the expectation. Economy will always be a target to face, But economy is not only money. Economy is also imagination. And economy is utopia, the wish to desire to have this combination of values. So that will give us a good trend for a Lighteam master plan. So we find this as a good possibility to share both values. And, well, maybe just to say last words. I found this thinking of Pablo Neruda, the great Chilean poet, that only with a burning passion we can conquer the splendid city, which will give light, justice, and dignity to all mankind. In this way, the song will not have been sung in vain. Thank you very much. Yeah. Any questions? Whatever.
So, for you, let's say, a lighting strategy for a specific city could be a way to address both its soul, its identity, and to project to the future. Mm-hmm. Okay, but how do you do that in in a less conceptual way? I mean, in the more direct way, let's say technically. How do you address such things by acting on lighting?
Well, you can start by the practical way, changing the lamps for, let's say, you have already high sodium lamps and you can change them for LEDs, but that might not be changing the city. Because it's not based only in technology. It's the way technology is used and what is good for. I think that I'm trying to expose that we need engineering and we need economic professionals to understand the budgets, as well the time frame. And the city cannot be rebuilt in one time. It's a process. So I think that the political position is very important. The government or the municipality needs to understand that this is a way they can have a good process of government. So light can also give the government a very important tool of power and of, government distribution of ideas. So lighting is so fast, it works so fast, You do a lighting master plan, not a big one, maybe only one street, and then it will continue. Because when you see the light, then also you discover the non-light. When you put light in a street, properly done, just one street, then you can compare with the other ones. And the other people would like to have at least something the same. So it's a process of visual experience. And the visual experience is something that anyone can understand. A little kid, an old man, as I said, rich or poor, we can all see. So we need to establish this process. And we need to speak with the authorities, of course, and make them a good presentation of the possibilities to recover the public space and to recover the sense of community and to establish a new possibility for wellness in the social being. So, and the technology is there. I don't think it's a technical problem. We have all the technical possibilities nowadays, Very beautiful technical elements that can give us energy saving, flexibility, low maintenance, nice color, whatever. But the point is how to use it and where to use it. That would be around the possibility. So the practical point is just to start the analysis and then proceed. That would be the way I've done it, at least. I mean, in my experience, I have done, I don't know, some lighting master plans around, and I have been able to feel how light transformates everything. When you put light in a place, everything is changed. People start cleaning the place, or they're taking care of something, and the place is clean by itself. No? And it's a very silent power of transformation. And it continues. And it increases economy, increases the marketing, increases the safety, of course, goes for safety and protection, orientation. So it has a lot of values besides it.
Hello. Very nice presentation. I'm a bit offended there was no Italian cities in your beautiful cities, but well, we will talk about that later.
Next time.
There was a slide about, it was a sketch where you had like a small city center with 2,700 Kelvin in the city center, yeah. And then it was like 3,500 and then 5,000. And I actually have been educated in a sense to read the color temperature of light in that sense, where we think that city center deserves warm light. And then you always end up in this outskirt, where the outskirt is always colder and colder and colder. And I don't think that the outskirt deserve 5,000 Kelvin, for example. But I'm wondering if it was just an example, or if it's something that you do, or I mean, it depends on the place, or I mean.
Well, the use of color is very important, no? The use of color in light. It's not that we're putting color, we are just recognizing the value of warm and cold, mainly, because we're not putting red or green or whatever, no? Yeah. So I think that for example, a sidewalk should be more peaceful, slow motion activity in the city, and the road of a car is more high speed. So maybe we can have a balance between putting more white light in the road and a little bit more warm in the sidewalk. In this case, this could be a good balance. So color is also so important in public spaces and streets and plazas. As you say, the outskirts of the city become cold, but they don't have to be that way. Yeah.
If I could just push Elettra's point a little bit further, that the issue of whether the inner city is warm and the outskirts are cold is not just about spatial distribution. It's about things like social class and inequality. As to say, the way in which we code different parts of the city in terms of who we think lives there, what we think their value is, what we think the value of that space is. And I would just say, I once had a conversation with a Philips engineer who was trying out different lights in the city of Bath. And Bath is noted for this beautiful yellow stone. And he was putting very warm lights in there to show up the color of the stone. Then he tried out, I think it was a 6,000 Kelvin light. Everyone just went, oh my God. And I said, where would you use this light? He said, in the suburbs, in the housing estates, on the motorways. And again, I mean, he was coding the social in terms of the way in which light codes different forms of inequality and value. Mm-hmm. I think that's the issue.
Yeah, you said something that there's like a social value in the color of light, and so very white light would be for maybe the less important, something like that. You know? Yes. Yeah. So yeah, that's very, very interesting, because you can see that the light has a meaning and it has a reaction over the people and over the trees and everything. You know? So a lighting master plan can consider those points. and make a good balance between all of them. No? Yeah. Very interesting to do that exercise. Yeah. Well,
Any other questions? No, I think we're done. Thank you very much.
thank you very much.
For this
My pleasure.
wonderful,
Thank you.
inspirational presentation.